Every summer, gardeners walk out to their lettuce beds and find them destroyed. Ragged holes in every leaf, slime trails across the soil. The slug pellets they scattered 2 days ago are gone, dissolved by the overnight rain, and the slugs came through anyway. They buy more pellets, the slugs come back. The cycle repeats every season, every year, and nobody asks why the solution they are being sold keeps requiring repurchase. In the autumn of 1882, a French botanist walked past a row of grapevines that had been painted with a blue paste, copper, sulfate, and lime, applied by the vignerons to deter passing thieves from eating the grapes. Every vine on either side of that painted row was dying. A fungal plague was consuming the Bordeaux vineyards. The painted vines were untouched. That observation led to the discovery of the world's first fungicide. It also revealed something about copper that the pesticide industry spent the next 140 years hoping you would forget. There are 4 things copper does in a garden. The first 3 solve problems that the industry sells you a new bottle for every season. The fourth, the one built into the biology of every plant on Earth, is the one they cannot replicate, cannot patent, and cannot compete with. It is the reason copper was never put on the shelf. Pierre-Marie Alexis Millardet did not set out to save the French wine industry. He was a botanist at the University of Bordeaux, methodical and precise, the kind of man who recorded everything in detail and trusted what he observed over what he was told. In October 1882, he was walking through the Médoc wine region when he noticed something that should not have been possible. The roadside vines, the ones the vignerons had coated with a thick paste of copper, sulfate, and lime, specifically to make the grapes look uninviting and deter thieves, were green and healthy. The vines, 10 feet away, unpainted and untouched, were dying. Downy mildew, Plasmopara viticola, was consuming the French wine industry vine by vine, and it had not crossed a line of copper sulfate. Millardet stopped. He looked at the painted vines. He looked at the dying ones. He started asking questions. 3 years of documentation followed. He cataloged every painted vine and every unpainted one in his study area. He experimented with concentrations and timing. He refined the formula until he had something that any farmer could mix from 2 cheap commodity chemicals and apply without specialist knowledge or equipment. In 1885, he published it. Copper sulfate, hydrated lime, water, Bordeaux mixture. The world's first scientifically documented fungicide, named after the region where an accidental observation became a discovery. It worked on downy mildew. It worked on late blight, the same disease that had caused the Irish potato famine 40 years earlier. It worked on peach leaf curl, apple scab, citrus canker, fire blight. Within a decade, it had spread across Europe and into the Americas, carried in the notebooks of agricultural extension agents who distributed it alongside mixing ratios and application timing. 1 formula, 2 commodity chemicals, and it protected crops across an entire continent. Here is what makes Millardet's discovery remarkable beyond the chemistry. He published it, he did not patent it, he did not form a company, he did not create a product line. He put the formula in a scientific journal and made it available to any farmer who wanted to use it. The copper sulfate and the hydrated lime were available at any farm supply store. The mixture cost almost nothing to make, and for the next 60 years, it was the standard fungicide across most of the agricultural world. Then the post-war chemical industry looked at Millardet's formula and saw a problem. Not a scientific problem, a business problem. You cannot patent copper sulfate. You cannot build a subscription from a mixture that costs pennies and never expires. The formula that had protected crops across a continent for 60 years had one fatal flaw. It did not generate repeat revenue, so they replaced it. Not with something better, with something they could sell. But before we get to how they buried it, picture what copper actually does when you give it the chance. 2 raised beds side by side in a back garden in early June, both planted with the same lettuce varieties on the same day, same soil, same watering, same afternoon sun. One bed has a strip of copper tape along the inside rim, 5 centimeters wide, no gaps at the junctions. The copper has oxidized to a dull green-brown. It looks like nothing particularly interesting. The other bed has nothing. 3 mornings later, the unprotected bed looks like something has been through it with scissors. Every outer leaf is ragged, eaten from the edges inward, slime trails cross the soil surface in every direction. The copper tape bed is untouched. Every leaf is whole, no slime trails anywhere inside the rim. A neighbor leans over the fence. She has been growing vegetables on this road for 15 years. She looks at the 2 beds and says, "What did you spray?" Nothing was sprayed. A 2-pound roll of copper tape applied once to the inside rim of one bed. The slugs that destroyed the lettuce beside it could not cross 5 centimeters of copper. Not because of any chemical that required a bottle or a repeat purchase, because of a reaction that has been understood since 1882. The tape is still on the rim. It has not been touched since installation. The lettuce in that bed will be harvested next week. Here is the science behind the slug barrier. Slug slime, the mucus that allows slugs to move, contains dissolved ions and copper reactive compounds. When a slug attempts to cross a copper surface, something happens that makes the experience deeply unpleasant. The leading explanation is a reaction between the copper and the ions in the slime, possibly galvanic, possibly chemical. The exact mechanism is still under investigation. The effect is not. A study conducted at the University of Vienna documented this in controlled experiments. Researchers placed Portuguese slugs Arion lusitanicus, one of the most destructive slug species in European gardens, at one end of a copper barrier and measured how long it took them to cross. The median crossing time on a copper surface was more than 23 times longer than on a surface without a barrier. The slugs slowed, hesitated, and most reversed direction rather than commit to the crossing. The width matters. Copper tape narrower than 4 to 5 centimeters loses most of its effectiveness because a slug can bridge a narrow strip without full body contact. 5 centimeters is the minimum, wider is better. Within hours of installing a correctly dimensioned copper barrier, slug activity inside the protected area drops. Within 24 hours, the pattern is clear. The slugs are working around the barrier, they are not going through it. But the slug barrier is only the beginning. What Millardet saw in 1882 was not about slugs at all. It was about what copper does to the thing that kills your tomatoes every August. When copper contacts the surface of a fungal spore, the ions penetrate the spore's cell membrane and denature the proteins and enzymes that keep the cell functional. The spore cannot germinate. The infection cannot establish. This happens on contact without the copper needing to enter the plant tissue. It is a surface barrier, not a systemic treatment, which is why copper must be applied before infection, not after. A copper coating on a leaf surface or a peach bud cannot cure a disease already inside the plant. What it can do is prevent every spore that lands on a treated surface from becoming an infection. Applied at the right moment, that prevention is near total. One spray in winter on a dormant peach tree. One application of Bordeaux mixture before the blight season begins. The formula has not changed since 1885. The results have not changed either. 2 defenses, 1 element, and most gardeners would stop here. But the third pathway, the one hiding in your watering can, is the reason seedlings collapse at soil level in the first week of growth, and nobody tells you why. Copper ions released into water through copper piping, copper vessels, or deliberate copper ionization systems are toxic to a range of soil-borne pathogens at concentrations that remain safe for plant tissue. The Pacific Northwest Pest Management Handbooks document copper ions as effective against Pythium, Phytophthora, and Xanthomonas, 3 of the most destructive pathogen genera in the vegetable garden. Water stored in a copper vessel overnight delivers those ions to the root zone with every irrigation, providing a degree of pathogen suppression that no standard irrigation system achieves, including the damping off organisms that collapse seedling stems before they ever reach their second leaf. 3 pathways, and none of them explain why a plant with enough copper in its tissue fights off infections that destroy the identical plant beside it. The answer is not about what copper does to pests. It is about what copper builds inside the plant itself. Copper is an essential plant micronutrient. It is required for chlorophyll formation, for enzyme activation, and for lignin synthesis, the biological process that builds the structural compounds that make plant cell walls rigid and resistant to penetration by fungal hyphae. A plant with adequate copper has measurably stronger cell walls than one grown in copper-deficient soil. It is not just a pesticide, it is a building material that the plant uses to defend itself from the inside. Soils high in organic matter, peat-heavy soils, and sandy soils are frequently copper-deficient without showing obvious symptoms. The plants growing in them are fighting disease with weaker walls than they could have, and nobody has tested the soil to find out. 4 things copper does. Stop the slugs at the rim, kill the spore on the leaf, clean the water before it reaches the roots, strengthen the cell wall from the inside. 1 element, 2 pounds of tape, and a bottle of copper sulfate that has been available at every farm supply store since 1885. And yet the garden center shelf is filled with slug pellets that dissolve in the rain, fungicide bottles that expire every season, and seedling treatments that need reapplication every fortnight. Every one of them solves a problem that copper solved permanently 140 years ago for a fraction of the cost. So what happened? The shift did not happen overnight. It happened in research funding cycles and product launch catalogs, one season at a time. In the first half of the 20th century, Bordeaux mixture was the global standard. Extension bulletins carried mixing ratios and application timing. Farmers across Europe and America knew what copper sulfate was and where to buy it. The method was not alternative, it was the curriculum. Then the post-war chemical industry found a more profitable model. Synthetic fungicides, patentable, proprietary, branded, expiring every season, began entering the market with the backing of an industry that had retooled from wartime production and needed new products for peacetime agriculture. Research funding followed the patents. Extension agents were retrained. The garden center shelves filled with branded bottles. By the turn of the century, 4 corporations had consolidated control over more than 60% of global pesticide and fungicide sales. You cannot patent a copper ion. You cannot build a subscription revenue stream from a 2-pound roll of tape. And you cannot sell a bottle of slug pellets to a gardener who understands what copper does to slug slime. Here is what makes the suppression particularly striking. Copper is still permitted in certified organic farming across Europe and North America. The pesticide industry spent 140 years promoting synthetic alternatives that organic farming cannot use, and the fallback standard for organic growers remained the thing Millerdet discovered in 1882. The so-called alternative is older than every synthetic product on the shelf. The method did not disappear because it failed, it disappeared because it stopped generating revenue. Now, here is exactly how to use it. For slug and snail control, the copper barrier is the starting point. Use copper tape a minimum of 5 centimeters wide, not the narrow decorative tape sold in some garden centers, which is too thin to produce the full reaction. Apply it to the inside rim of raised beds, around the base of individual pots, or around tree trunks where slugs climb to reach the canopy. The tape must form a complete circuit with no gaps. A gap of even a centimeter gives a slug a bridge. Check every junction and seal any gap with an overlapping piece of tape. The copper will oxidize to a dull green-brown over time. This does not reduce its effectiveness. Wipe the tape clean if it becomes covered in soil or debris, as a thick coating of material can insulate the slug from the copper surface. 1 installation per season is sufficient in most conditions. For disease prevention on tomatoes, brassicas, fruit trees, and vines, use a copper hydroxide or copper octanoate spray. Both are OMRI listed for organic use and widely available. Apply before infection, never after. Copper is a contact preventative. It does not move inside the plant and cannot address a disease already established in the tissue. Begin applications when conditions favor infection, cool nights, humid days, periods of rain. Apply every 7 to 10 days through the high-risk period. Stop before the fruit colors on tomatoes, as late-season copper can cause skin marking at the concentrations required for disease control. For peach leaf curl, 1 copper spray applied in winter dormancy after leaf drop and before bud swell prevents the entire disease for the season. 1 spray, 1 window. That timing is everything. For Bordeaux mixture, the original 1885 formula, dissolve copper sulfate in water and combine with hydrated lime at roughly 10 grams of each per liter of water, adjusted by crop and disease pressure. Apply in early morning, not before rain, and not in temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius. This formula has been protecting crops for 140 years. The mixing ratios appear in pre-war extension bulletins and horticultural guides that predate every branded fungicide on the current market. For water treatment, store irrigation water in a copper vessel for 16 to 24 hours before use on seedlings. The copper ions suppress waterborne pathogens while remaining below any threshold that damages plant tissue. 1 honest limitation: copper accumulates in soil over time. At the concentrations applied by industrial-scale agriculture, millions of pounds per season across large acreages, this accumulation raises documented concerns about soil biology. At the concentrations applied by a home gardener, a strip of tape, a seasonal spray, a copper vessel for the seedling water, peer-reviewed research has not identified meaningful accumulation risk. The industrial concern is real and worth knowing. It does not apply at the scale of a kitchen garden. A market gardener in Kent had lost his brassica crop to slug damage for 3 consecutive seasons. He had tried pellets, nematodes, beer traps, and hand-picking, all with partial results that required continuous effort and regular expenditure. In the 4th season, he lined every raised bed with 5-centimeter copper tape and applied Bordeaux mixture to the brassicas at transplant and again 3 weeks later. By harvest, slug damage was negligible. A few outer leaves on plants at the bed edges where the tape had not been sealed quite to the corner. He calculated his total copper expenditure for the season at under 15 pounds. His previous 3 seasons of pellets, nematode applications, and replacement plants had cost him over 200 pounds. The copper tape from his first installation is still on the beds. A home grower in Edinburgh had watched her peach tree lose every leaf to curl for 5 years running. She had been told the disease was untreatable once established and had accepted losing the foliage every summer as the cost of growing peaches in Scotland. Then she read a reference to dormant copper spray in a 1940s horticultural guide. She applied a copper hydroxide solution to the bare tree in December, before the buds had opened. The following spring, every bud opened clean. Not one leaf showed a trace of curl. She stood in front of that tree in April and cried. 5 years of watching every leaf blister, pucker, and fall. 4 pounds of copper hydroxide sprayed on a bare tree in December. That was all it had ever needed. A first-year grower in Bristol installed copper tape on only 3 of her 6 raised beds. She did not have enough tape to finish all of them and decided to treat the experiment as a comparison. By the end of July, the difference was impossible to ignore. The 3 taped beds had clean lettuce, intact seedlings, and no slime trails. The 3 untaped beds had sustained slug damage every week through June and July despite regular pellet application. She finished the remaining 3 beds with copper tape in August. She says the comparison was the most useful gardening experiment she has ever run, not because it proved something she had not suspected, but because seeing the 2 outcomes side by side made the result impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Each story follows the same logic. The copper does not run out. It does not wash away in the rain. It does not require reapplication every fortnight. It was installed once and it worked. That is precisely why it was never packaged and placed on the shelf alongside the products it replaces. Pierre-Marie Alexis Millardet published his formula in 1885 and gave it away. 140 years later, the copper ion still denatures the fungal cell wall. The slugs still will not cross the tape. The peach bud treated in December still opens clean in April. None of that changed. What changed was who decided what gardeners should know about it. Every strip of copper tape around a raised bed is a gardener who stopped buying slug pellets. Every Bordeaux spray is a grower who stopped reaching for the branded fungicide. Every copper vessel holding tomorrow's seedling water is a household that has removed one more product from the list of things it needs to purchase before the growing season begins. The garden does not care what the pesticide industry replaced this with. It only cares what works. And what works has been documented, peer-reviewed, and available at every farm supply store since the year Millardet walked past those painted vines in Bordeaux and stopped to ask why they were still alive. The copper tape costs 2 pounds, the pellets cost 2 pounds every fortnight. The only difference is which one someone told you about. What else in your garden has been waiting for you to ask why? We have a video on the 6 soil secrets that ancient farmers used without ever buying a single input. Click on it and we will see you there.